Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jerry Sarmiento, and this is our show on the internet, Mesanote Bites. We're transmitting from beautiful Cypress, Texas in northwest Houston. Taking advantage of this beautiful day. It's it's very humid, but that's not anything out of the ordinary for here in Houston during July. So this is a good representative day of summer in Houston. But anyway, the theme of today, we're going to talk about making your own wine. And by that I mean, in theory, it sounds pretty straightforward. Make wine is grape juice, you squeeze it, put some yeast, let it ferment, put it away in some barrels and let it age for a couple of months, and then you're all set. Not so. In theory, that's the process. And also there are some houses out there that offer you medium-sized purchases, a couple of cases at some price, and they can slap a label of your own bottling. You can say Jerry's Cabernet, or Sarmiento's house, or Mesanote's house blend, or whatever it is, and just put a label and give it to friends for Christmas. But what I want to talk about today is the fact that there is something very close to making, if not actually it is the right way of doing wine right here in Houston, in the Heights neighborhood. And I was surprised. I was taken over there by it's a winery in the Heights, and our good friends Bill and Gail are actually producing some of their personal label wine for their own consumption and to give to friends. I hope comes out pretty quickly, because I would like to try it for Christmas. So anyway, we took the ride on Sunday afternoon to this place in the Heights called Vintner's Own, spelled like that. Okay, and their website is actually www.vintnersown.com if you want to check it out. But we were there on a Sunday because Bill and Gail are, as I said before, putting together their own production, and the process I explained before at a very high level is the right process, and Vintner's Own will help you do it the right way. They actually source the grapes from either Texas or California, whatever your preference is. We spent some time with the winemaker there, and he's very knowledgeable. And actually what they do is they sit with you and they build a profile of what you want to create, whether it is a Barbera type or a Pinot Noir type, or a high in tannins, a cab, a blend. You can even bring your own bottle of juice that you like. Let's say I like this wine very much, so we'll go there and we'll taste it, we'll sit down, we'll talk about the characteristics of the wine, we'll see how much acidity it has, how much alcohol, what kind of grapes, etc., etc. And then they know, the operation is he and his father at Vintner's Own. They know where to go to source the grapes, so they may go to California. That's where Bill and Gail actually got their production. If you're really into it, you can actually fly over there and see where your grapes are growing and touch them, and and then harvest time comes, and they'll pick the grapes and they'll put them in refrigerated containers, ship it off to Houston, and then Vintner's Own will take care of the rest. You can actually come in with your friends and separate the good grapes from the bad grapes and do the selection of the grapes, what you want to go to the process and what you want to throw away. And it's like it is a real winery, and they take it from there. They take the grapes, they put it through the entire process, which we're going to look at in a few seconds here, because we went and I wanted to film the process, so I want to show you what that looks like. But anyway, I thought it was fascinating, that is within our reach. If you really want to make wine, there are many things. You have to buy the land, whether it's going to be in Napa Valley or somewhere in the hill country in Texas, or Tuscany, or Rioja in Spain, or Mendoza in Argentina. So of course it's a major investment. And that's just the beginning. And we know of what kind of investment it is. Actually, our friends were talking about Bill and Gail. They bought some land and they're growing some great grapes up here, right here in Texas. But their strategy again is not to produce the whole thing. They're going to be just producing the grapes and selling it to winemakers. And that's the way the dynamics of the industry work. Many wineries are totally vertical. They plant their own vines, they harvest their own vines, they process their own vines, they ferment and they produce and age and bottle. And some others buy the grapes and go through the process, and vice versa. So in this particular case, as amateurs, aficionados, whatever you want to call us, we want to approach that a little bit, and in the process learn winemaking process and learn about wines in a very deep and committed way. There's nothing better than doing it this way. You don't have to buy the land, you don't have to buy the machinery. Of course, it's not a cheap undertaking. Vendors own, I believe they sell by the barrel and the half barrel. I don't know if you contact them through their website. They probably sell in a quarter barrel, maybe. Keep in mind that a barrel is 24 cases, so that's a lot of bottles of wine. And the price, I'm not going to tell you how much it is. It's not cheap, but you can find out through them directly. But it is a fascinating process, because you do what I was just telling you. You go there, sit with them, show them the wine you really like and enjoy, the characteristic of the wine. They'll draft a plan of what kind of grapes, source it from where, what are the times of the year when we want to harvest, when to bring it in town, and when to start the process. And they have the machinery. Of course, it's a small winery. This is not a large, making thousands of cases a year, but only, a few barrels a year. But the whole process is right here in the Heights. You make your commitment, you pay your dues for whatever it is that is going to cost you, half a barrel, quarter barrel, a full barrel, and then see it progressing. Now, money is one of the aspects of all of this, but that's probably not the most important aspect. The other important aspect is patience. This is not a thing that you go pay your money, say I want this type of wine, and you're gonna get it next week or next month. This actually is a project of a couple of years. You have to go through the whole process of going to harvest, picking the grapes, bringing them to Houston, putting them in the process, fermenting them. Fermentation is a quick thing, and putting them in the barrels is another quick thing. But then they have to rest. They have to rest for 12 months, 18 months, whatever it is, and then in the process you go and taste and see how it's developing, how it's evolving. If there anything that you don't like, then you may want to put some other juice from other grapes, from other productions, to balance it out, or to give it more color, or give it more tannins, or give it more body, or giving it this or giving it that. So it is a whole process, and the people here at Vintners Own, and believe me, I'm not making a commercial for them. I just was fascinated by the visit, so I loved it so much that I wanted to talk to you about it. But they will help you with, through the process, what's going on with your wine, and at the end, hopefully you will be satisfied, and they will bottle it. And you have enough time to go and find a graphic designer or somebody in your family that loves to do that, design a beautiful label. And there are houses that produce labels just for wines, and you come up with a beautiful label and just put it in there, and you'll have, if you buy a whole barrel, you have 24 cases of wine that you may give to friends for years to come. Or you can buy a quarter of a case and enjoy it on weekends with barbecues with friends and family or whatnot. But the whole process is fascinating, because it's really the process of making wine right here in the Heights in Houston, Texas. And you can take a Sunday drive like we did, go check your wine. By the time it is ready to go, just pick up your cases, take them home, put them in your cellar, and you're a happy camper. So anyway, that's hopefully a brief intro into this. I took some videos while I was there, so I hope you enjoy them. And again, the name is Vintners Own, and you can contact them, and if you're interested, please go do it, because it's fascinating. And let me try your wine, of course. In the process, let me know how it's going, and I would love to try it and give you some comments. But hope you enjoy the video, and hope you get fascinated by it, and do it. So with that, have a great rest of the week. Have a great weekend. Enjoy life. Enjoy your family. Enjoy friends. Enjoy wine and good food. Enjoy life in general. See you next time here at Mesa Note.
At the very start of this process, this was fruit that was grown in 2009 in Napa Valley, Dale Brown Vineyard. It was put into a cold truck after it was harvested and shipped here to Houston. 2009 was a late harvest. It was a cold year, so we got it near the later part of October. As a result, unfortunately, there was a thunderstorm that dumped a bunch of rain onto it, and we didn't quite get the sugar we wanted out of it. So it's a lower alcohol than your sort of typical Napa Valley Cabernet. It's probably a 13% wine rather than a 14% or 15% wine, as you sometimes see. Once the fruit arrived here, we put it into one of our deep freezes and keep it cold until somebody's ready to process it. We actually process it here down our line, and then the fermentation occurs in half-ton macro bins. What's unique about our winery is that we do everything in basically 130-gallon lots in the beginning, and then break that down into 60-gallon lots. So every single wine that I make is unique in that it's been separate from everything else throughout its life, with the exception of some topping wines and leftover pieces at the end, which all go into one barrel. After we age that wine for 18 months, we bottle it, and it becomes something that you can enjoy.
Drink.
So.
And what grapes do you have? Only Cab?
No, we have, well, it varies year to year. In 2009, we had Merlot, Syrah, Cabernet. We had a very small amount of Zinfandel. And I believe there was something else that is slipping my mind. And
No Tempranillo?
yeah, that's it. And then in 2010 we had same Merlot. We passed on the Syrah. We also had a Cabernet. We had a Zinfandel, a Pinot, a Chardonnay, and I also made some Texas wine that year. We made a Malbec, a Petit Syrah, Cabernet from Texas, Merlot from Texas, and Blanc de Bois, Villard Blanc, Favorite, and some Black Spanish. So we had a whole bunch of different stuff in 2010. I really expanded mostly on the Texas side. California side, we kept about the same volume of wine, but actually just changed up and had more varieties. So.
Okay.
Wonderful.
And then you asked me about the specifics of what you blended into.
Well, I know that when we were in here months ago, I forgot how many months ago that was, that we did a tasting then that was started with the Cabernet, and we went with two different wines that we were blending with it just a little bit at a time.
Okay.
And
one was Sangiovese. I think that's what we ended up adding to it.
So I don't know the exact. I'd have to go look it up in the files, but I'm pretty sure it would have been Sangiovese and most likely Petit Syrah.
Okay.
Because we brought in some Petit Syrah, and like I said, it was like a light year, so it was kind of a lighter bodied wine.
Right.
At that point.
And what I seem to recall is that instead of doing the three-way blend, we wound up with just a two-way blend because we liked it better. That's what I basically recall.
I would have guessed, yeah. If it was a two-way blend, I mean, my inclination would be that you probably put some Petit Syrah in it because it was a darker, heavier wine. It was more Cabernet style, and so it would have added like a lot more color and body and all that.
Okay.
So you do all the crushing here, crushing, fermentation?
Yeah, I'm happy to show you the production line.
Yeah, that'd be great.
This is our crush line. What we do is we take those half-ton macro bins, are actually the same macro bins we ferment in, is the same thing that we transport our fruit in. So we'll take those, get our forklift, we have a rotator bar, it kind of allows us to tip the bin upside down, and we'll sit here and we'll dump the grapes into this hopper. This is a vibratory sorting table. And what this does is that all the juice, of course, as soon as you open a refrigerated truck in Houston in summer, you can pretty much imagine that there's like all the sorts of humidity that just hits these grapes immediately. So there's a little bit of water that settles to the bottom of that bin. That'll all fall through the slots in the bottom of this table. And what it will do is, because it vibrates, it actually is able to meter out. It doesn't matter if there's a small amount of grapes there or there's a large amount of grapes in there. The rate of them coming out of the front of this device is more or less even. So they kind of spill out at an even rate. And what that allows us to do is our clients can come and actually sort through the fruit. So they can look for what we call maw, or matter other than grapes. So seeds, stems, sticks.
So when you get them off the truck, they haven't been processed at all. They've just been picked and thrown in the truck.
Exactly. Yeah, they are hand harvested. So generally, the harvest is very clean. with machine harvesting, you get mixed results. It really depends on the operator of the machine.
So your customers, when they sort out the fruit, are they sorting their own fruit? I mean, that it's going to be their fruit for their wines?
Yeah, that will be theirs, yeah, whatever they sort through. So whatever goes through here, if they miss, the human finger, that will be
The lizards.
Ain't gonna live with it.
Most
Difference between machine harvested and hand harvested. If it's hand harvested, you might have a finger in there.
Exactly. Thankfully, I haven't seen that. I've only
Wedding
seen-
bands.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of interesting things come down the line, but never a finger, thank goodness. So after that, it goes up this elevator, and that just brings it up into the crusher and the stemmer. This device at the end is sort of where, for red wine, a lot of the processing actually happens. It's actually turned around backwards right now. I'll push this out for you so you can see. But in here, basically happens, fruit falls down into this hopper at the other end, and it's sort of metered into this, and the paddles spin one way, and that cage spins the other direction. And what happens is those bats hit the bunches of grapes, and the berries fall off. They fall down the slats, and the bunches fall out this direction. So we have all the bunches of grapes falling out this way, and all the fruit itself, the berries, they fall into this, which is actually a set of rollers. And depending on what style of wine you want to achieve, you'll crush with a varying level of intensity. So if you're going for something very light body, you want it to ferment cold, you might not break that berry open very much because it'll take a longer time for the yeast to work its way into the grape. If you want to create a very bold bodied Cabernet, you want to ferment it hotter, you might want to start that fermentation quicker and let it get up to a warmer temperature faster. So we'll break it a little bit more. So there's some stylistic consideration there. If you really want a lot of tannin, you can actually break the seeds, and you'll have a very, very dry wine as well. So there's some options with the crusher. At that point, what goes underneath here is one of those half-ton bins that we shipped everything in. We have this thing that goes on during harvest where we have bins moving both directions. We have grapes moving this way, and empty bins full of crushed fruit moving the other direction. And they all sort of end up in this sort of massive circle of chaos. And we take the dirty ones and wash them out, and then fill the fruit into the half-ton macro bins. We then add sulfur the first day, yeast the second day, and nutrients along the way. 10 to 14 days for all the sugar in the fruit to be converted to alcohol. So basically, during that fermentation, what will happen is after the first few days, the fruit will start to break down, and the skins will float to the surface, and all the juice will go to the bottom. Juice and seeds will go to the bottom. What we do is we come along with a long stainless steel tool with a little piece on the end called a punch down tool, push down the cap, and what that does is it sanitizes the cap because bacteria can start to grow on the surface where there's no alcohol to kill them. We'll push that cap back down into the must, and that'll kill any bacteria on there, but it also aids in that now you have this insulating blanket on the top as well. It aids to cool it. So depending on the temperature that you're trying to achieve and how sanitary you need that cap to be, because at certain stages it's more vulnerable than others, very vulnerable in the beginning, not much at all during the end, you'll punch it down a certain number of times a day. And generally for us that's 2 to 3.
And do you let the customer decide on all those conditions, or it's
all those conditions? So they can choose the type of yeast they want to put in, how hot they might want the fermentation, if they want a bolder or less bold wine. We allow them to choose how many punch downs they'd like if they want to really control that in a nuanced way. Another thing we talk about is tannin a lot. So the length of that period that fruit is actually sitting in the juice, or the berries, the skins are sitting in the juice, will determine the dryness of the wine. So that's a major consideration. And normally what I try to do is, because it varies so much depending on what part of the vineyard it was from and a lot of other factors, I try to say, well, do you just want low, medium, or high tannin wine? I mean, what style are you going for? And then based on that, we'll taste the fermentations almost every day. And so the people that want like really bold, monstrous wines, we'll generally press those last. And the people that want softer, more subtler wine. So a Pinot, for example, the Pinot that I made last year, we only fermented that from its starting point of 25 bricks all the way down to about 14 bricks. So bricks being the percentage of sugar in the water. So that's only about half of its whole fermentation before we actually pressed it and continued the fermentation away from the skins. So because you don't want a lot of tannin in Pinot. Next part of the process, after that fermentation is complete and we're ready to press, actually the press, this is the pneumatic water press back here. And what it does is, on the other side of this device, this round cylindrical thing, there's a series of slots and a piece of the stainless steel. And this flips over and there's a door. And we fill it with all the fruit, close the door, and there's a giant bladder on the inside that inflates. And and deflates, and the whole thing rotates, and it kind of does this on a program. So it'll inflate, squeeze the fruit for a period of time, deflate, roll it around a bit, inflate again. How that's different to like a traditional basket press you sometimes see with a, there's a guy cranking on it, is that those have a tendency to really give you an uneven amount of press. So the inside might be really, really moist, the outside will be very, very dry. This gives a really even kind of device, and this is pretty much the smallest one of these you're going to see anywhere. This will take anywhere from about 500 to 1,000 or 1.5 ton. So at a time. Normally they're half the size of this room, much larger.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the smallest one we could get would actually be able to do sort of still barrel size fermentation.
Mm-hmm.
After we're done pressing, we'll generally move the wine into one of these plastic containers you see here. They're called flex tanks. It's a wine-specific container. People actually age their wine for its full life in these containers because they don't leach plastic smells into the wine. We'll actually leave them in there overnight. What we're trying to do is let the sediment or all the little pieces settle to the bottom. We'll then rack out of those into the barrel and start malolactic fermentation. And malolactic fermentation will, it's a much longer process and it happens at a lower temperature. It's bacteria that converts malic acid to lactic acid. It takes 30 to 60 days.
And do you do that only in Chardonnay or in other different wines?
Reds?
Most reds and Chardonnay. Chardonnay is the exception to the whites. Most white wines typically are done with, just with the malic bacteria in there. So you have some crispness to it. Chardonnay is the exception of the rule. Chardonnay is actually like making a red wine.
Okay.
When we're done, we bottle, and there's two barrel rooms back here.
Little Armstrong, isn't it?
Nice and
So
cool
the
here.
barrels are all the same.
In 2009, I used some both new and neutral oak. In 2010, I moved to a chip program and started using more neutral barrels. And as neutral barrels, they more or less behave the same way.
So what kind, is this our barrel?
This is your barrel, yeah.
Okay.
Now, has this already had the initial blending, or?
This has
Oh yeah. So this is what we have here, Cab and some
This is
Sangiovese?